Salutations, creeps. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is for you on your end. Hello, Doc Fugit again here. Now today, I was going to center this episode around the Blob to commemorate its 60th birthday, but something else took supreme precedence in my brain. Don't worry, creeps, next week we'll blob out and double down on that and the Nun. This week, I can't lie, and I know that I'm not alone in this current climate. I can't get puppets off my brain. With both the new Puppet Master reboot and the blasphemy that was the Happy Time Murders, the Happy Time Murders being the first Henson Studios film to be released since Muppet Treasure Island. It was directed by Jim Henson's son Brian, who also directed Treasure Island along with Christmas Carol, which are honestly two of my favorite Muppet films. So, I couldn't help but walk into this with at least like a little shred of hope, and it was more than a shred of hope. I was kind of excited to see Brian Henson's comeback because, like I said, I fucking love A Christmas Carol and Muppet Treasure Island. But I jumped right into this. I guess I gotta explain. I'm just here to tell you not to see this movie. This is the opposite of a plug for the Happy Time Murders. I'm here to convince you never to even think about this movie, never to say its name, like Lord Voldemort or whatever, or a lot of words in our PC culture right now that you're not allowed to say. Happy Time Murders should be something you're not allowed to say because it is very detrimental towards puppets. Alright, let me get into this hunk of shit. Now, I know that I am technically publicizing this film by even putting its name out there, but I'm telling you right now, this is anti-propaganda. This is me trying to propagate you towards never seeing this movie ever, and I hope it's just erased from everyone's memory and that Brian Henson and a lot of these other people are never allowed near a fucking puppet again. Alright, as I've been saying, been trying to do my best to avoid becoming, too hopeful about anything, which was big time mistake with this one. And I honestly have zero interest in seeing any movie with Melissa McCarthy in it, too. So, I had this hope for it, and I fucking hate Melissa McCarthy. She's just so annoying to me. She's not remotely funny in my eyes, and I just don't understand how she's a commodity, because it seemed like she was the selling point of this movie, but this was just no exception to her shitty cavalcade of bad movies, in my opinion. There were some slight rays of decency in here. I chuckled a couple times, but she had nothing to do with any of them. Trust me. The movie is, itself, the plot is, that it's a murder mystery set in a world where humans and puppets coexist, but puppets are viewed as less than human, second-class citizens, you name it. They fucking have done this with so many things. X-Men, fucking... I'll get more into that in a second. When the puppet cast of a 90s children's TV show begin to get murdered, one by one, a former cop, who has since become a private eye, takes on the case. This one plays like a really bad Who Framed Roger Rabbit. That was the second one I was going to go into, but it really is just like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but... it was directly raunchier, but Who Framed Roger Rabbit, honestly, looking back on it, that was pretty inappropriate for me to have been watching when I was 5 years old. And this one just slap you in the face, ill-conceived humor. It just, it's just bad, both in the sense of the raunchiness, oh, that's so bad, oh, and as well as the overall quality of it. So, they're not even good, gross-out jokes. Don't worry, creeps, I won't drag this one out for too long, because it truly is something that should be avoided even being spoken of, like I said, at all costs. Especially if you have any similar form of feelings towards this as I had. Like I was saying, you're probably wondering at this point why I even bothered to spend more time on this after seeing it, and why I'm fucking going off on this rant right now. But I'm not seeing nearly enough hate for this movie, and that's why. And it's far more deserving of hate than a lot of things that I'm seeing. I'm all for movies with animatronics and puppets, but not at the cost of them being this stupid and, almost slanderous. Because they're just so stale and flat out bad. Because I guess the idea for this one, like, there's been a draft floating around Henson Studios, or some form of a script has been kicking around for 20 years, and I mean, it shows. These jokes are not only dated, it's like they ignored other movies that had similar ideas, like Team America, or even the Puppet Master movies, which I'll be discussing in a little bit, because I know those are a big hot-button topic right now. But back to the matter at hand. I mean, like I was saying, like, it just ignores everything else that came before it. And it's 2018. This movie acts like it's the first project to take children's tropes and inject adult themes into them. All the remaining Henson players return with Brian, and it's just so painful. It's like about as painful as watching a recent live performance of Alice Cooper. Sorry if you're an Alice Cooper fan, but that's all I can relate it to, really. It's just so sad to see what something so great can fall to. It just does not translate in any way, shape, or form, and seems only to exist for fucking vanity's sake. Like, haha, we did it! Look how fucking funny we are! But you're not. There's no real idea of what they were going for. The completely flat ending made that painfully obvious if the rest of the other fucking, like, 80 minutes before it didn't. And the original Elmo actor did some puppet work in this. I didn't recognize him, but, like, it's 2018. Like I said, it's 2018. I have no idea what the fuck Brian Henson was thinking when he made that decision. Not that I can claim to know half of what his deal really is, but I definitely remember those allegations all those years ago. Like, fucking Elmo was, like, a weird fucking... I think it was, like, even worse than Michael Jackson level. Trust me. The public remembers as clear as crystal, Brian. And speaking of crystal, I honestly had to go back to some of the basics and watch The Dark Crystal, The Labyrinth, just to see how far Henson Studios has fallen since the death of Jim. I mean, when it comes to ventures outside of the Muppets, like, Jim Henson was able to make such awesome fucking movies. Like I said, The Dark Crystal and Labyrinth were amazing. And he came up with this all on his own. He came up with all the Muppets. Fucking, like, Jim Henson must be rolling over in his fucking grave right now. Like, Brian Henson, you did your dad proud with Muppet Treasure Island and the Muppets Christmas Carol, but he is rolling over in his fucking grave right now. And, like, in hindsight, like, I thought it was so lame, but now, like, good on Sesame Street for suing this movie. Not because, like, it linked them to, you know, such vulgar content, but, like, for linking them to something so shitty and embarrassing. Like, fuck, man, like... I would honestly rather watch, like, 2 hours of Sesame Street than this hour and a half. I'd rather watch 3 hours of Sesame Street than watch this hour and a half of dog shit. Again. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Do not see The Happy Time Murders. That's the last time I'm going to say this fucking movie's name ever in my life. Stay away, creeps. Alright, on to more positive matters. Before getting too into this whole Puppet Master thing, again, you know, getting into some more puppet-related publicity right now. It's another movie that seems to be polarizing people, and that was Summer of '84. And if you're not familiar with what Summer of '84 is, the plot is, after suspecting that their police officer neighbor is a serial killer, a group of teenage friends spend their summer spying on him and gathering evidence, but as they get closer to discovering the truth, things get dangerous. An extremely derivative concept, I mean, I agree. But it's from the trio that directed Turbo Kid, a trio of French directors who are more fascinated by American pop culture than, you know, a lot of these other things that seem to just be attempting to write a BuzzFeed article on nostalgia. These people fucking, they actually see American pop culture as a fucking art form, and it's very obvious in this and Turbo Kid, which I also highly recommend. So I was once again inclined to believe that this was going to be amazing. And this time, praise Jah, my expectations were met and then some. Again, I saw a lot of people getting very upset at the idea of this movie being made, since it seems to clearly be identical to the plot of Disturbia. But that was honestly just another half remake of a Hitchcock movie called Rear Window, if you've never heard of that. And neither of these are honestly the most exciting movies in the world. Rear Window and Disturbia. I mean, specifically when it comes to their final acts. Summer of '84, however, made me absolutely fall in love with it in the third act, which is the absolute opposite of those two movies. I mean, Disturbia, we get to see the subterranean abattoir of the killer next door when we finally find out that he is the killer next door. Rear Window, though, is just Raymond Burr rubbing his eyes and fiddling with his glasses when Jimmy Stewart's flashing his camera off at him so that he just can't die. Like, what are you doing? Why are you taking pictures of me? Why can't I see you? All I can see is little dots like fireworks shooting underneath my eyelids. I mean, other than that, Rear Window is obviously superior, but that ending is just kind of laughable when you actually think about it. Not as much a joke as, a cop-out, though. Honestly, after all that painstaking conjecture, the reveal in the finale is like such a wet fart. What are you thinking? I've broken into your apartment and I'm afraid to run at you and kill you like I killed other people. And the dog. Whatever. I digress. No, I can't even digress quite yet because, I mean, it really is such a ridiculous ending for a movie that everybody says is one of the best movies ever. Like, Raymond Burr is up inside of his apartment. He's broken in. Why is he asking why he's watching him? He knows. You know, idiot. Because you murdered someone. You murdered your fucking wife. And he knows. And you know that he knows. So, Alfred Hitchcock, maybe you were just too in love with Jimmy Stewart because he should have fucking died at the end of that movie. I mean, that would be like my favorite movie ever if it didn't have such a ridiculous ending. All right. I digress. This time for real, I digress. All right. Anywho, this movie does not end with a wet fart like that one kind of did. Those both kind of did. And the final act as a whole kind of flipped the whole concept on its head in a very exciting way. I don't really want to spoil it because it was a truly satisfying movie in my opinion, front to back. And it was what a horror movie ending is supposed to be, and that is all I have to say about it. I'm not going to ruin it. And as far as people calling it juvenile, which I've seen a lot of, if you can handle Stranger Things, this will seem like fucking fine art to you. Because, I mean, all the characters are so fucking young. They're obviously going to have juvenile dialogue. The young actors are pretty amazing, and the writing is definitely pretty juvenile, but it was definitely trying to be. So, I mean, like I said, the main characters are, like, you guessed it, juveniles. So that's why it's so juvenile. If you can't deal with it, don't watch it. So I really wouldn't expect them to speak in any other way, like I said. And the one character who wasn't a child was the enigmatic and supremely creepy neighbor, who they believed to be the culprit behind all the child abductions. Though it didn't have anything to do with puppets, I have noticed that it has polarized a lot of you creeps out there in cyberspace. And I, for one, am on the obsessive side of the spectrum. I can see why those of you would be on the repulsed side, and I respect you for being wrong. No, I'm just joking. I don't know. Like I said, these kids are just as good, if not better, than the kids in fucking It and Stranger Things. And, like in It, we get that nice one adult character who's like the fucking... Well, I mean, he could be or he couldn't be the antagonist, but right from the beginning, he says some shit about 15 being the perfect age, and you get some real creep vibes from this guy. Which the actor, I didn't recognize the actor who played him, but he played it up like a motherfucker. I mean, he was so goddamn creepy in that movie, and like, but at the same time, like, part of being creepy is that there's like kind of an innocent side to you, which, I mean, like I said, like, I mean, this fucking concept's been done to death because it's such an interesting concept. I think that's really all there is to that. Other than that, on to more puppets and polarized opinions. Just like Summer of '84, I obviously could not help but see every single person on the internet, it seemed, posting about the Puppet Master reboot in either scathing or praising responses. I mean, although I haven't seen too many praising, it's been a lot of scathing stuff. And these types of dichotomies with art always intrigue me, and seem to have been in extreme abundance over the past year. I mean, look at fucking Solo. Like, they're putting Star Wars on freeze everything other than Episode 9. They're putting it on freeze because everybody boycotted fucking Solo because they were so angry at The Last Jedi. And that's just one movie. The Justice League drove some people crazy. Some people loved it. I mean, it seems like any movie that's coming out now that gets a decent response, there's another huge, not even fringe group of people anymore that hate it. So it's just like everything is such a polarizing event when it comes to a big movie or big anything coming out, TV show, whatever you want, whatever. And it always seems to intrigue me how people, just the lengths that some people go to with how upset they are over how something affects their life, even though it's just a piece of fiction. Now, before I checked out the new Puppet Master, I had to go back. I had to go way back, having to brush up on the original 3 and through some of the others. The original 3 are really the only ones that I remember being worth watching. I skimmed through a couple of the other ones, mainly Part 5, which has a pre-The Room performance from Greg Sestero, and I have not seen this movie since I saw The Room, and it's really funny to see what kind of shit Greg Sestero did before he did The Room, especially after seeing what was it called? The Disaster Artist too. It just fascinates me. But those Tommy Wiseau and him, I'll probably watch anything that they are in. And honestly, they're a lot more fun than I remember there being. And the past 3 were, all right. The Nazi and Axis trilogy or whatever. Again, I tried watching them, but I don't know. It's just there's only so much low budget stuff you can watch that has no real passion behind it, and it's clearly just being churned out to fucking keep the. I can respect that. I understand that's how a fucking horror franchise works. That you make a lot of money off of an idea and you just try and milk it for all it's worth, especially with smaller studios. You got to keep that money coming in so you can keep on making movies. But to be honest, I really was not that thrilled with the last 7 installments of Puppet Master. And I really don't understand what the outrage is about. The original series is going to keep on rolling regardless. That last one in that trilogy was not the last one of the original Puppet Master. I understand that they retconned it to make this reboot, but it still exists and they're still making it. I think that despite any of this, that any horror fan should in some way, shape, or form just be tickled pink by the fact that Fangoria, a magazine which has been rebooted, financed a reboot of a horror franchise. You really can't be so mad that you can't see a little bit of humor in that. Unless you are, in which case you must be a pretty angry person when it comes to things that you're a fan of. I do understand that in this reboot that the main idea of the puppets being Nazis and they're originally created to fight the Third Reich could be irksome to many, hardline fans because Toulon's entire story hinges on the fact that he made these puppets out of... he didn't make the puppets for revenge on the Nazis, but that's when they originally became his killer puppets, was to take revenge on the Nazi regime for taking his wife away. And, I don't know if you haven't seen the third one and you're familiar with the dolls, but the female one that spits out the leeches is his wife that he brought back to life as one of his puppets. Like I'm saying, I will admit that this part where all this happens, part 3, is hands down my favorite installment. Toulon's Revenge. Puppet Master 3, Toulon's Revenge, which is set in Berlin during World War II. The Nazi regime is attempting to develop a drug that will animate the dead in order to use it in the war effort. Toulon arouses suspicion and his secret is discovered. During a Nazi raid on his home, Toulon's beautiful wife is murdered, as I said. Toulon vows revenge with the help of his animated puppets there, like I said. This movie gives a new perspective on Toulon, the creator of the puppets, and his friends, the puppets. And just everything about this hits all the right buttons with me in all the right ways that a horror movie should. It created a concrete emotion for this universe, but it still at the same time had some amazingly silly performances from Ian Abercrombie, who played Elaine's boss, Mr. Pitt on Seinfeld, the man who inspired me to eat candy bars with a fork and knife in my youth, and cult movie specialist Richard Lynch, who was in Rob Zombie's Halloween remake as Michael's principal. He also had a little cameo in Lords of Salem, too, before he passed away in 2012. And if you get the Blu-ray version of this, you can really get a few peeks at how legendarily gnarly this guy's nose hair was. He was just, so disgusting looking. He was also so recognizable for that and his Robert Redford-like fried chicken skin. Ugh. The Blu-ray of this is really something to behold just to see his ugly-ass face. There are several scenes where he quote-unquote speaks German, but I'm certain that he was just mumbling gibberish in a heavy accent, which constantly he's slipping in and out of. Except for in the end where he's just saying, Mach, schnell, schnell. Like, every 2 seconds, I think he probably about 1,000 times in the last 20 minutes, the guy's going, schnell, schnell. I don't know, like I said, that one just hits all the right buttons with me. It's got enough of a concrete, story that I can empathize with and connect with, so I want to watch the whole movie through. I mean, I don't know, I just don't feel that for, like, any of the other installments in the original franchise. Part 3 is probably the only installment, too, to not just boast a story that's that compelling, but it also has a cast of better actors than maybe any other installment. Like I said, Greg Sestero, who played Mark in The Room, plays a young Toulon in Part 5, so that shows you the caliber of actors they had been recruiting since 3 came out. It also has some pretty amazing sets, which delve the viewer right into war-torn Germany, a theme which plays so strong in this series, but it's never actually, seen. So, like I said, I could commiserate with you about hating this reboot, because I have an extremely soft spot for Part 3, but I mean, it's really not a Hallmark franchise. Like, it's really nothing to get that upset over. Like, I don't even understand how people got so upset over Star Wars, and Star Wars is, like, the biggest franchise ever. Anyway, if this really does bother you that much, then just ignore the reboot. That's what I did with RoboCop, and honestly, a lot of other movies I'd prefer not to dredge up, such as That Which Shall Not Be Named, which I warned you against in the beginning of this episode. So I do empathize with your hate. But I mean, there really isn't any hardcore ethos here. It's just a goofy horror movie franchise with puppets infused with Nazis. I mean, who cares, really, which side they're on, as long as they're killing shitty, annoying people. That being said, I still have to say that Toulon's Revenge is still my favorite Puppet Master movie, even after watching this one. But this one definitely has its own feel to it, and I appreciate that a lot. I mean, this separates it from the original ongoing series very distinctly, with a pretty amazing script from S. Craig Zahler, who also wrote and directed Brawl in Cell Block 99, along with the terrifying Bone Tomahawk with Kurt Russell. Right from the get-go, we're introduced to a very different Toulon, played by the always amazing Udo Kier. And we are also introduced to a clearly, significantly altered mythology from the original series, which is spelled out rather nicely in a really cool animated title sequence. Well, it's not really animated as much as just really cool still, like, prints that kind of go together like a little, like, comic book that tell the story of what happened to this much more sinister Nazi Toulon. Like I said, I'm not going to go too deep in on this one like I didn't go too deep in on Summer of '84, because I don't want to ruin this for you, because I think if I want to divert people from being scared off by all the hate, because I think people should at least give this one a chance. I mean, the designs of the puppets are a little different, but the main difference lies in their new animatronic movements, and we're also introduced to some upgraded pals who definitely must have cost a pretty penny. Except for Junior Hitler, who is just like a little simple animatronic baby with a Hitler mustache drawn onto it. I mean, to be honest, the outrage would make a lot more sense if a totally undeserving company got the rights, and I mean, a hack wrote the script or something like that, and was just a complete piece of shit. But I mean, this isn't true in either case. While I do understand that everyone has different tastes, I think a lot of people must be writing this one off before even giving it a chance, just like I was saying before about Summer of '84, just because it had a similar premise to other movies that had come before. Because all that matters, of tastes aside, is Fangoria knows horror, and Zahler most certainly knows how to write. And for those reasons, I really don't understand how anyone could really hate this that much. Unless it's like a Last Jedi deal with you, like I was talking about earlier with Star Wars, where you're trying to say it like raped your childhood. Because the series really, like I said, it really wasn't that groundbreaking to begin with. I mean, all of this aside from the fact that this movie has some of the grossest kills I've seen in a long while from any movie, and some of the coolest practical effects to boot from any movie. Like I said, stop listening to all these keyboard warriors who are trying to scare you off from this. There's definitely a lot of silver lining to this one. I mean, while some of the dramatic scenes do work like tin foil on your teeth, the cast more than makes up for it, with several familiar faces, other than Udo's, including Thomas Lennon, a.k.a. Officer Dangle, one of the creators of Reno 911, and Barbara Crampton from The Reanimator, who also had and plenty of other things, obviously, who also had a little cameo in the original film. Which leads me back to the backlash again. I really am just so confused how fans could really be so upset over some of the changes to the lore. I mean, there was so much more to this. Is it like a punk rock mentality? Like if these movies are too overproduced, they lose their charm? Like, I'm sincerely curious, and I just like want to tell you guys, like, oh, be nice. But I just want to know why there's so much fucking hate behind this, because I didn't see how there could be such a negative reaction to it. Because I'm just really dying to know, because all I've really seen is just people saying, it's just trash, it's utter trash. It's torturous to view. But, I mean, I haven't seen anybody specifically pinpoint what about it they hated. I mean, I've tried dissecting here what you could have hated, but, I mean, I've also, like a good lawyer, given some evidence as to why this, I thought it was actually pretty fucking awesome. I mean, Tom Lennon was, Dangle from, the guy who played Dangle in fucking Reno 911 was pretty amazing, I think, in this. He had a decent script to work with. He had a nice little hero's arc there. He had a nice supporting cast with him. I mean, there was always something going on. Some really sweet, gory kills. There was some stuff still left open. I mean, I don't want you to boycott me here. I don't want you to stop listening to me here. I just sincerely want to fucking know what the reasoning is behind this, and please just clue me in here, creeps. I just want to know. I don't want to be left out of an inside joke that's apparently being passed around here that I'm not privy to the punchline of. Because like I said, I've broken it all down here, broken it all apart without giving any spoilers, but I couldn't find anything in there that was worth hating that much. And this is coming from someone who I will not name the title from the beginning of this episode, like I said, because I'm never speaking the name of that movie again, but I completely tore that movie to shreds, point by point. I told you why I hated that movie so goddamn much. So please, just give it a little clap back. Tweet at me, comment on my YouTube channel, I don't know, fucking PM me on any of my social media platforms. Just let me know, and I'll feature it in the next episode if it's a salient point. Because I would like to hear the argument for what specifically made The Littlest Reich so bad that it deserved to just get panned. It seems like it's being panned by everyone. I haven't seen a single person. I've seen maybe one or two people say they liked it, and at least 100 people say it was the worst, sloppiest piece of shit they ever seen. And I don't see that. I just don't see how it could be seen as any worse than a 5 out of 10, and that would be if you're not a horror fan, I'd say. So come on, bring it on. Just let me know. I want you to prove me wrong. That's what I mean. By all means, prove me wrong, but just give me some solid facts as to why it is bad in comparison to the classic Puppet Master movies. Because you can't be mad if you didn't like the original Puppet Master movies. You just have to be indifferent. So you have to be an original fan if you're really that mad about it. And like I said, the original ones weren't even that great. They were fun and everything, and this one's fun too. Tell me why this one's not fun and those ones are fun. Just let me know. I'm begging you. All right, before I get too heated up and go off the fucking rails, I guess I gotta let you go, creeps, because that's about all I got to ponder over this week. Sorry I'm leaving you a little bit short change this week, but I was on vacation. I enjoyed it. It was nice to recharge my batteries. I guess the negative side of that is that I'm leaving you, my loyal creeps, with a little less content this week, but I promise I will be back with a nice meaty episode on the 60th anniversary of The Blob and The Nun next week. So let's get our Conjuring marathons in, let's get our Blobby marathons in, and we'll have a fucking fantastic time next week. But like I was saying last week, hey, you might be anywhere in time and space. So, you might even be marathoning this right now. And there might not be a next week in It might even be not next week that we're talking about. You might have like 5 episodes queued up right now that you're listening to. Who knows when you're listening to this? But whenever you are, I still do have to sign off from this communique. So, Doc loves you, creeps. Doc is out, creeps. Doc will see you next time, creeps. Peace out.